a lot of people struggling with heavy metal toxicity that have no clue that's what it is.
Mm,
It can manifest in a constellation of symptoms. It could look like something completely different. It can look like autoimmunity. It can look like brain fog. It can look like my bones ache if you have lead. Like it can look like all these different things. And I think it's way more prevalent than people think. We've estimated that probably 25 to one third of the population has some sort of active negative effect due to toxins.
that was Kyle Hubbert, and you've landed on the Me&My Health Up podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Hartcher, your well-seerge. The purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten your well-being. And today I have Kyle Hubbert, the CEO of Longevity Centers in the US, and we're discussing hormones and toxins. Yes, so if you've got any concern out there in relation to you can't find out what's quite wrong with why you're feeling so fatigued, foggy brained, or you might be putting on weight, yet you're exercising and eating well, this episode is for you or anyone else you know that may be suffering from those symptoms. Yes, we get deep into hormones and toxins. So without much further ado, I'd love to welcome you into the discussion I'm having with Kyle Hubbert. Welcome on the Me and My Health Up podcast. How are you, Kyle?
Very good. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation on hormones and toxins. Very topical and causing lots of fertility implications and lots of other things such as, I guess, energy and really affecting where we, I guess, where we put our body fat and things like that. So really keen to, first of all, if you could bring the listeners up to speed as to how you've arrived at what you're doing today.
Yeah. So currently, I am the CEO for Longevity Centers of America, integrative medical practice. We have two clinics right now. We're expanding, but how I got here is a bit of a tale. So strap in. Basically, I was a collegiate athlete. I was fit. I was not like my friends. Right. A lot of my friends went out and drank. They partied. They slept for 4 hours a night. They woke up. They did all nighters for their tests, and they passed the test, and they went out and partied again. Right. That was not me. I was an athlete through and through. I woke up early to go train. I went to bed early. I ate clean. I lived a very clean lifestyle. But what happened is no matter how clean my lifestyle was, I started to get sicker. I had all these symptoms pop up. Fatigue was kind of the first one. I started falling asleep in class. Then brain fog got hard to think. Really, really cognitively heavy work was difficult. Then joint pain, gut problems, all kinds of allergies popped up, and even got into like a lot of mental health symptoms. I had anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. So I'm living the objectively perfect life at this point. I'm in my master's degree on a rotation in Dubai, right? Like, who gets that opportunity? And I'm on like the 32nd floor, I think, of the Dubai complex I'm living in. And I'm like, I should jump off this balcony. I was like, what is this? Why? Like I'm living this good life. Objectively, it's on the outside. It's a great life. And then like even from health and lifestyle, it's clean. So like, what's the problem here? So I kind of started looking, and I went to 6 or 7 doctors. Half of them said I was making it up. They're like, it's in your head. They're like, you're fine. And I was like, I am not fine.
Hmm.
Trust me. Like I know myself, I'm not fine. Like, how can my buddies who live this terrible lifestyle be doing better in their health than I am? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm a young male. Like, I should have energy. Like, I should be able to get more definition. I should be able to gain muscle. I should be able to lose fat. All these things are getting harder and harder. What is going on? And the other half of the doctors said they just couldn't find it. So I got kind of down the biohacking rabbit hole. And I started, listening to podcasts. I listened to Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield and started reading their books and like diving into it. And it actually led me to a one of Dave Asprey's like biohacking conferences. Very strange place, by the way. You can go here and like everybody's happy, and like you can hug someone just randomly that you don't know, and they're just like, yeah, like it's this really very interesting community, right? But I was like, there's something here. And while I was there, so I went to every single booth. Like, remember, I'm sick. I need an answer. I'm like, surrounded in this biohacking like center where all the tech and everybody's like fit. They're like everybody's got 400 abs. They're all shredded. They're tan, and I'm like overweight, fatigued, depressed, like all nine, and I'm struggling. And so like I roll up to this concierge health thing, right? I'm like, I don't even know what this is, but like maybe you can help me. And they're like, yeah, we'll get to the root of your problems. I was like, sign me up. Good luck. So I sign up, and this guy, the first thing he did for me, the physician there, is he said, dude, your hormones are a mess. My first testosterone test, 159 total. So for reference, that's about 10% of what it should have been. And I was young. And so he balanced my hormones. I call it TOT, testosterone optimization therapy. He optimized my hormones. And within 1 week, my mental health symptoms were gone, full stop, never came back, just from fixing the testosterone. And I started to get some energy back. I started to get a little bit more mental clarity. But that's kind of where it stopped. And I was like, well, hey, there's something else here because I still have allergies to everything that I didn't have 5 years ago. I still have gut problems. I still have joint pain. I still have some fatigue and brain fog, even though it's improved. So, like, what's the root? I was asking his physician. He was like, I have a hunch. I was like, okay, like, tell me about your hunch. He's like, I think you need to go see my buddy down in South Florida. He's going to test you for heavy metals. I was like, okay, heavy metals. Let's do it. So I drive 4.5 hours down to South Florida, and I get tested for heavy metals, and the results come back. And sure enough, my mercury is through the roof, just crazy levels of mercury. And I've never felt so happy to get a bad diagnosis. So I'm like, hey, look, it's a terrible result. It's amazing. It's like, this is great. So that doctor sent me to another doctor in his practice, which was the doctor who treated me, who is now my business partner, Dr. K. His name is Dr. Benjamin Kosubevsky, but he goes by Dr. K because nobody can pronounce his last name. So he treated me and he started pulling out the mercury with chelation. And little by little, the symptoms just started to fall off. Allergies were going away. The gut was getting better. The joint pain was getting better. The fatigue and brain fog getting better. I was losing weight without doing anything. Like I would literally go get an IV to pull out mercury and I would lose 2 to 3 pounds. It just happened. And I was like, what is this? At the time, I was going through my doctorate degree for business, and they make you take a bunch of courses on research. And so I took all that research knowledge about research design and good studies and things like that, and I poured it into medical literature and learning about mercury, learning about toxins and that kind of stuff. I kind of self-taught myself. I worked with the physician, and I was like, hey, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Some of it, he was like, yeah, it's not going to hurt you. Try it. Some of it, he was like, no, I like my license. You're not going to do that. Moral of the story is he ended up treating me. I got dramatically better. And I told him, I was like, hey, listen, this stuff works. Like you saved my life. So if you ever want to open your own practice, you give me a call. Like I do business. I'm a business guy. And one day he gave me that call and he was like, it's time. Let's go. And I said, hang on. So we worked together for I think it was 45 days, about 13 or 14 hours a day. And we launched a full scale integrative medicine clinic in 45 days from literally nothing, from an idea.
Wow.
And it's literally everything: logo, website, like services, pricing, materials, inventory, everything. 45 days. We launched it and it was fully booked week one and it's been fully booked since.
Wow.
Our premise and why this kind of really speaks to me in what I do now is because like I was suffering for something that most doctors don't know what it is or don't even acknowledge it's real. And that treatment was not cheap. And so one of the things that Dr. K said to me when he brought me on to help run his practice was like, people need these therapies and I don't want to lose patients because they can't afford it. So you need to go figure out how to make it affordable. And I said, let's go. I have a purchasing background. I have a background in business. So we took every part and piece and every single IV and every single ingredient and everything we do, down to like the little catheter that goes in your arm for the IV, everything. And we found the quality standard that we wanted. And then we price shopped that item across basically every vendor we could find in America. And so we order from, I don't even know how many vendors, dozens and dozens of vendors. And that allows us to keep our prices lower than just about anybody else in the game.
I really keen to understand. Did you ever get to the bottom as to where the mercury came from?
Yeah, yeah. So I think I was like a series of unfortunate events on the Mercury. So my mom had amalgam fillings. So I got some of it in the womb. Silver fillings are 50% mercury by weight, roughly. And then I was born during the vaccine period in which vaccines were mixed with thimerosal, mercury adjunct. And so I got all of those. And then, being an athlete and lean protein, I just destroyed cans of tuna, just cans of tuna, mustard on top, just boom. I'm like, it's lean as it gets. It's the ultimate protein. And so years of that with the childhood exposures, just kind of tipped me over the edge in college.
Yeah, wow, wow. So, like, it's as if, like, when you're telling me the story that you lived next to a mercury plant or something, like, and there was mercury in the water and mercury in the skies, and it was raining mercury. And I'm thinking, wow, because what you've been exposed to, a lot of others would have been exposed to the same, particularly in that generation where that was the type of fillings, right? And tinned tuna is quite a convenient way to have a so called healthy lunch
Mhm.
or healthy dinner, whatever it might be. Obviously vaccinations are all through society. So it's not like your upbringing wasn't uncommon. You could say it was pretty normal.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people struggling with heavy metal toxicity that have no clue that's what it is.
Mm,
It can manifest in a constellation of symptoms. It could look like something completely different. It can look like autoimmunity. It can look like brain fog. It can look like my bones ache if you have lead. Like, it can look like all these different things, and I think it's way more prevalent than people think. We've estimated that probably 25 to one-third of the population has some sort of active negative effect due to toxins.
wow. Wow. And so that toxins were certainly having an implication on your hormone production, right? Which resulted in 10% of what's normal
Yeah.
of testosterone, which was affecting everything about you: fatigue, brain fog, yeah. And then you've got your putting on fat when you're training so hard, and just around the testosterone, you actually improved that before you actually got rid of all the mercury that was there. So that would have been a difficult a challenging thing to do. So how did you go about doing that?
So I did before I ever now I'm on testosterone injections. I'm on actual bioidentical. But before then I was really concerned because I was young and I wanted natural production. So I actually went on two separate things, HCG and enclomiphene. And kind of the way enclomiphene works is it signals to the brain, hey, we don't have any estrogen. It like blocks that signal. And so the body to make estrogen starts pumping out testosterone that which then can convert to estrogen. And so it's kind of like a more natural way to produce testosterone. And so like because I didn't have primary hypogonadism, so like I didn't get like kicked in the balls and they stopped working, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
it was the brain signaling, it was the pituitary. So is if we could trick that signal and say, "Hey, we don't have any estrogen," the system turned back on.
And is that because of the signaling's corrupted or disjointed because of the amount of heavy metals, which is causing inflammation, which is causing all sorts of signaling implications in the body?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mercury loves the brain as its
right.
target, and so it can vastly mess with your hormone production, brain fog, and mental health. Like, and then you think about if it's causing itself brain fog and mental health issues, and then it's messing with your hormone production, that's a double whammy.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, and it was causing suicidal ideology ultimately for you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and and it was the metals, it wasn't anything else. It wasn't like childhood trauma or anything like that. It was just, I guess the
Yeah.
toxins in your body. Yeah, yeah,
Which I will go so far as to say that our mental health crisis that we're having in America, especially, I think, is not all related to trauma. I think a large part of it is actually related to toxic exposures and hormonal dysregulation. Like, I think if we address those two things, the mental health problem in America would be vastly reduced.
Yeah, and I don't think America's alone because, being based in Australia, we have vaccinations. We have well, I guess that generation was getting only that type of feeling. And then tins of tuna are prevalent, right? Yeah, so it's really challenging. So, obviously, you've got a longevity center. What's the premise of how you support your clients in terms of they come in, they're not feeling great, right? They could be quite these hackers that just want to go another level. But who is primarily the person that walks in your door, if
Yeah.
you sort of speak to that avatar?
So we do have a small percentage of our patient population that is like there for biohacking, optimization, true longevity. But for the most part, the people who are coming in to see us are the people who are, hey, I've been to 7, 8, 12, 10 doctors and I don't know what's going on with me. Something's wrong. Or, hey, I got this diagnosis. The doctor said there's nothing much I can do. I've got 5, 7 years. What can you do? Like that chronic disease patient base is really kind of the majority of our
Okay.
patients.
And that's prevalent everywhere in the world, well, certainly in the Western world, and that chronic disease. Okay, there'll be certainly listeners that are on I guess, the wheel, so to speak, or being passed from specialist to specialist to specialist to specialist, and everyone's sort of thinking, "You've got a problem, but I don't know what it is. I think you may need to see this person." And I've actually got a friend that's a bit on this wheel at the moment. So obviously, that they walk in the door. Obviously, you then go through a various amount of testing regime. They go through a thorough testing regime. What are you looking at, and what sort of tests do you put your clients through?
Yeah, so we start because of our focus on affordability. We start with comprehensive lab work. So there's big companies now that do like comprehensive blood work panels. You can order online, they ship them to you, or you go to a draw center. Ours are more comprehensive than that, and we run them through this whole gambit of tests. We're actually able to bill through patients' insurance, so they can actually bill their lab work to the insurance. The rest is cash pay. But once we get those results back, they sit down with the practitioner, and the practitioner will listen to the subjective. Hey, what are you dealing with? What are your symptoms? How are you presenting? And then he'll look at the lab work and be like, these are what the numbers say. This is what's off. What correlates with your symptoms? From there, he'll recommend the specialty tests because we don't want to just say, like, welcome to the longevity center. Here's $5,000 of testing you should do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You probably don't need it all, right? So we do one at a time based on the practitioner's intuition. He might say, hey, we want heavy metal test, or hey, we want a Lyme test, or hey, we want X, Y, or Z, a total toxin test. Based on our correlations with the lab values and the subjective symptoms, we're pretty much like 90% hit on, like, if he asks for a specialty test, it's usually positive.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because by the time they've come to you, they've already spent a lot of money, right, trying to sort out their issues and still feeling crap, essentially.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, we don't want to spend more of their money. We want to find it as fast as possible. We have to run a business. So treatments cost money at the end of the day. Like, that's how it works. But we don't make hardly anything on testing, and testing doesn't actually fix anything.
No, no,
So
that's right. Yeah.
we want to nail it as fast as possible with as least cost as possible so you can actually get to the treatment part and actually get the results.
Yeah. And what are you finding? Like, see, obviously you'd be keeping some numbers in terms of, what people are experiencing more of or less of. And I'm interested as to what you're seeing. People come, with what are the majority is, or if you could sort of bucket them into, is it fatigue related? Is it autoimmune? Or is it, and then, what is behind that, just to give us some general idea of this person, what's happening and what's going on with them.
The symptoms are almost too wide ranging to name. People come in with anything, like, under the sun. Like my symptoms, it could be allergies, it could be headaches, it could be brain fog, could be fatigue, could be autoimmunity, it could be joint pain. Like, it could be all these things. What we see a lot of in our practice is a lot of Epstein-Barr virus activation, a lot of Lyme disease, a lot of heavy metals, a lot of mold toxicity, a lot of like pesticide buildup, and hormonal dysregulation. So those are kind of the main buckets that we see most people will end up in. The symptoms for like someone with one of those things could look very different person to person. There are like telltale correlations between the two. Like Lyme patients often have a certain way they speak. And if you're an advanced practitioner who's seen hundreds of Lyme patients, you can kind of pick that out. That's like why one of our practitioners, he can be like, you need a Lyme test.
I just wonder, like, with like parasitics and mold and things like that, it like it must be something that we haven't got an immune system that's able to deal with this. And I'm wondering if it's sort of this over sanitization that's we don't build a robust immune system, hence we're more susceptible to these parasites or so and mold and things like we're more sensitive culture because of this over sanitization and cleanliness. And because I recently visited my brother in Africa, and they don't worry about hygiene. Well, they can't, I mean, they just don't have the means to worry about hygiene, but they certainly there's no fear there, right? It's just life, right? It's just normal to them. And then I compared to what we do in the Western world. I'm thinking, well, we've gone too far. They're probably, I guess, the other extreme, and the middle road somewhere between us both. But have you got any data, or have you done any research into why is our immune system struggling so much in the modern world?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to the burden that we're exposed to. And so, like, one of the big pieces of research that people love to talk about is the hundreds of separate carcinogenic toxins that are found in cord blood, right? So if you think about the Industrial Revolution, maybe like the 90s, and that's the time when, oh, we're starting to use all these machines and we're burning coal and all this tech. And we're using these inputs to make these things that we don't know what they do to people's health. We're going to start doing that. People are getting exposed to stuff. People usually can detox a lot of burden. But if you think about if it passes from generation to generation, and if that burden keeps growing, and so babies are being born with a higher burden each generation, you're leading up to an immune system that can't keep up, right? You're basically being born into a system that's already overloaded from day one. And so then when you're exposed to the basic flu, like it's something potentially lethal because
Yeah,
you're dealing with all this toxin buildup
yeah,
that wasn't the kid's fault, right? It was
yeah.
just years of accumulation.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess what would a client's journey look like when you're treating that typical client that's got an overwhelmed immune system, struggling? There's a lot of inflammation. I know it's going to be individualistic, but generally, what's that sort of flow look like? I mean, you must be working with their lifestyle. There must be obviously some support you do. You mentioned IV earlier, supplementation. Yeah, just sort of trying to get this sort of general view of how someone walks through your clinic and gets supported in that situation that, yeah, their immune system's overwhelmed. There's a lot of inflammation causing a lot of
Yeah.
symptoms.
Yeah. So, we are, I actually had quite a few business people tell me like, "Hey, your business model's terrible." I was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Well, your patients get fixed and then they go away." And I was like, "What? That's literally the point of what we're doing." I was like, "Yeah, but they're going to refer 10 other people because it's fixed."
Yeah, yeah.
They were like, "No, no, like you need a membership and like to keep people in." I was like, "Hold on, hold
Yeah,
on. Like we are an actual medical clinic. We want people to be healed." So the patient journey is very specific for each person. So based on what you have, what your lab results are, it could look like hormone balancing. Maybe you want to do some detox therapies like chelation to remove the heavy metals, or EBOO to oxygenate the system, kill bacteria, viruses, pull out glyphosate. Then we'll probably go into some kind of mitochondrial enhancement, things like methylene blue, cleaning up the pathways for the mitochondria. And then based on their goals and their test results, so we retest as we go to measure that we're actually making progress. And we pivot the plan for them until they get to their goal. And then when they get to their goal, they usually kind of disappear because they don't really need us anymore. Maybe we'll see them in 10 years, who knows? But it's hard to describe the patient journey because it's so varied. It is personalized like 100% for each patient. So, one patient might come in and it's, hey, these three supplements, and testosterone, and that's it. And another patient might come in and it's like, my goodness, like we need you in here 3 or 4 days a week doing this series of IVs, followed by this series of IVs, followed by this to get you where you need to be because we got some work to do. So it is so varied. Like some patients come in once a month and some patients come in almost every day.
And you just mentioned a word that I haven't come across. It sounded like Hebrew, but I know it's not Hebrew. It's got something to do with oxygenation. Yeah, could you just, I guess,
EBOO?
describe? Yeah, Hebrew. Hebrew was it?
EBOO. Yeah.
Hebrew. Yeah.
EBOO. So EBOO stands for, are you ready for this? This is a mouthful. Extracorporeal blood oxygenation and ozonation, which in fancy medical speak means the blood is outside your body and gets some oxygen. In real human terms, think of it like an oil change for your body, the blood being the oil. Blood goes out of one arm, goes through a filter, a dialysis filter, which filters out all kinds of toxins, garbage, glyphosate, stuff like that. In that filter, it's infused with ozone, which kills viruses, mold, bacteria, stuff like that. Super oxygenates. Then it passes through a UV light, which kills more bad stuff. Then it goes back in the other arm in a closed loop system. So it's like some sci-fi stuff. It really is.
So,
But it
so it's
is
a
like the best way to explain it is an oil change.
okay, and it's essentially one of the best ways to detox the body, right? Because yeah, you're extracting all the rubbish out of the bloodstream, putting clean blood in that's heavily oxygenated that can support tissue rejuvenation. Yeah,
And we always recommend three, like a series of three, because if you do one, what the body does is like, hey, the blood's clean. And it usually sends a signal to the body that, hey, we can dump our extra trash back into the bloodstream out of the tissues because the blood's super clean, right? It's an equalization effect. So you go to a second one, it mops up that. It does it a third time. It's usually when you get the biggest dump and you mop it up a third time. That's when the patients are like, whoa, it's working.
yeah. Having that, obviously that clean blood, well oxygenated, they must feel like a new person in essence, like and super clear, super sharp. I can imagine, like it just energy from where did this energy come from? And yeah, yeah,
Yeah. We get everything from I slept great last night after my treatment and my skin is glowing to, oh my goodness, I haven't had this much energy in a decade. This is crazy. My fatigue is gone.
EBOO. Wow, that's um, uh, uh, a- and you mentioned mitochondria before, methylene blue. Just what, how do you support the clients around that powerhouse, that energy system?
Yeah. So one thing about the mitochondria is you want to be careful. There's a lot of marketing online that's like mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You should turbocharge your mitochondria. Sounds great. More ATP, more energy. Let's do it. But the problem is if you're filled with toxins and you turbocharge the mitochondria, it's like pouring like trash gasoline into an engine that's built for a drag strip. It's just going to blow trash out the
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
So you're going to have all kinds of like random symptoms and you're going to feel not good. So you basically want to focus on really optimizing the immune system and the detox before you get into the mitochondria. And then the things in the mitochondria that help, I mean, you can start the bar low, right? Creatine, that's a good starting place. It's as close to free as you can get if you buy it bulk for a supplement. You can go into some more advanced things like your methylene blue is a great example. There are a bunch of supplements like Timeline Nutrition has urolithin A. That's a pretty solid one. And then there's some more advanced things we can do in terms of like biologics and tweaking the full immune system and the cellular environment for signaling that we can into as well. But really, the main part about like getting more energy out of your mitochondria is make sure that the fuel that you're running on is clean. So detox first, chances are your mitochondria are going to pick up dramatically when it's a great fuel.
And obviously, you must be doing or supporting your clients outside of the treatment, right? And making sure that they optimize the treatment to minimize the cost to themselves. What are the common things that you're doing with your clients in terms of, I guess, out of clinic support?
Yeah, so I'll be 100% honest. Due to our model, we are not good at concierge, right? So outside clinic support, we're not very good at. to be honest with you. Because of our prices, they're so low that we have to do volume for us to make a dollar. And if we don't make any money, we can't serve any patients. And so, like, outside the clinic support, we don't have a whole lot. Where we do tend to help is we have a lot of people that we can refer to, especially for things like home remediation or, looking at your environment or looking at your water. We have PTs that can help. We have a network of trainers for lifestyle. We have people that work with diet and nutrition that we can refer out to. So most of the time we refer out for all of that, just because our clinic is not set up in a way that we can actually holistically support people in that because of our model.
Right. And is there anything common that you find with your clients that they're doing outside of, I guess, the support that's not, that could be changed or, modified to really help what they get in the clinic?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is stopping the toxic exposure. Like, say you have a glyphosate problem, right? Pesticides. You live on a golf course. It's being sprayed like every day, right? You got a pool that's like 10 feet from where they're spraying the pesticides. It's going in the pool, right? You're bathing in the pesticides. So, like, one of the biggest things is making sure that, like, hey, like, if we have a known source of exposure, let's try to remove that the best we can. You have a moldy bathroom. Okay, let's get that fixed so we're not constantly exposed to it. One of the stories I heard was we fly in giant slabs of tuna every Friday from Hawaii. Doc was like, "Well, I'm not gonna be able to fix your mercury if you just keep eating multiple pounds of tuna every single week. Like, what are we doing? So stop that."
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great, great share there because in essence, it doesn't matter how much you do in the clinic. If they're constantly got that source coming in, they're going to finish they'll feel good whilst they're getting the treatment. They'll leave, and then they're still doing that, loading up their toxin burden. So, I guess
And a lot of
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of that happens actually pretty naturally too during the treatment because people will be like, here's my results. Oh my gosh, I have this. Where does that come from? And doc, one of our practitioners will go through kind of the common sources and then they'll be like, this. We're like, yeah, that. So what can we do to fix that?
really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some great insights as to, well, certainly your story, how you've arrived at what you're doing today, the amazing clinic you run, how you support your clients. Would love you to share with the audience in terms of how they can find your clinic, where you're located, how they can sign up or, find out more about what you do.
Yeah, yeah. You can find us online at www.the.com. We have a clinic in Greenville, South Carolina, and West Palm Beach, Florida. But really, like when I'm on podcast, I don't really want people to check out the clinic. Go listen to our podcast. Longevity Unlocked is the name of the podcast. It's education on everything we do, A to Z. We even give some free stuff away on it every once in a while. It costs us a bunch of money to run. It's really just a passion project for me and the doc just to get the word out there. There are no sponsors. There is no free, like it costs us a bunch of money, but it is truly just to get the education out there. So Longevity
Fantastic.
Unlock.
I'll include the links in the show notes, listeners, viewers. So just go directly to the show notes, click on the link and follow the podcast, get some good information, education. And if you're ever around South Carolina, pop in and say hi to Carl and his team would love to see you. So really appreciate you coming on, Carl.
Excellent. Well, I was glad to be on.
It's awesome to meet you and thank you for sharing. And to the listeners, please share this with others that might be struggling in the sense that they aren't finding an answer to their issues, their health concerns. So please share this episode. It might be really enlightening as to there still is hope out there. There's still people that can help you. And once again, thank you for continuing to health up.
Podcast disclaimer. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare, or professional advice and are provided for general information purposes only. All care is taken in the preparation of the information in this podcast. Connected Wellness Proprietary Limited operating under the brand me&my Health Up, does not make any representations or give any warranties about its accuracy, reliability, completeness, or suitability for any particular purpose. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it are not to be used as a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, psychiatric, or any other mental health care or healthcare in general. me&my Health Up recommends you seek the advice of a doctor or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Inform your doctor of any changes that you made to your lifestyle and discuss these with your doctor. Do not disregard medical advice or delay visiting a medical professional because of something you hear in this podcast. This podcast has been carefully prepared on the basis of current information. Changes in circumstances after publication may affect the accuracy of this information. To the maximum extent permitted by the law, me&my Health Up disclaims any such representations or warranties to the completeness, accuracy, merchantability, or fitness for purpose of this podcast and will not be liable for any expenses, losses, damages incurred, indirect or consequential damages or costs that may be incurred as a result of the information being inaccurate or incomplete in any way and for any reason. No part of this podcast can be reproduced, redistributed, published, copied, or duplicated in a form without prior permission of me&my Health Up.